You only need one reason to be optimistic about this Jaguar season, and I'll tell you what that thing is in just a second here on Locked On Jaguars.
You are Locked On Jaguars, your daily Jacksonville Jaguars podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
It is your team every day here on Locked On Jaguars. We thank you for making us your first listen. I am Tony Wiggins, the host of the Locked On Jaguars podcast that you can find wherever you get your podcast, man. Just make sure wherever that is, you tap in so you do not miss an episode. We're going to take you through some of the biggest stories as we're heading into training camp, talking about what this team has and what they don't have. But mainly today is going to be a focus on the fandom and why you should feel optimistic. I will explain all of that in just a second. I first have to let you know, though, that today's show is sponsored and brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $100, $150 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. That's $150. Make sure you heard that correctly. All right. Hello and shout out to the everydayers. And if you're not one, you can be one. I'll give you a reason to try to come back. Let me take you on a little trip here. What we're going to talk about. We're going to talk at the end. We're going to give you a reason to look ahead, right? A lot of things to look ahead for with this team. We're going to remind you that Rome wasn't built in a day. I'll explain that. But right now, one reason is all you need to feel optimistic about the Jacksonville Jaguars. And I'm going to lay it on you. I first have to explain why I'm saying this. The one reason that I believe the Jaguar fans can hang their hat on is the same one reason why I do these shows the way I do them every single day. We are constantly on a fact-finding mission, but we are constantly aware that the facts that we want are good things. Nobody wants to be told how bad their team is. Nobody wants to be told how awful their team is or how long this process is going to take. At this point, when you're sitting there trying to figure out if you're going to start buying tickets, at this point, if you're going to sit there and try to feel like how the next 4 or 5 months going to go for us. No, that's not what you want. Like you want the truth, especially because you're smart. You know when somebody's lying to you, right? You want the truth, but there's something about the word optimistic that means you're always sort of hopeful, right? When a new season starts, that means the old season is still there, but it does not matter about what we're doing now moving forward. In the past, too often in the past, starting with Shad Khan, even when some changes were made, those changes were where we hoped that was the problem. And we hope this will move us beyond what we saw last year. Your reason for optimism is simple. One is because you're going to do it anyway, regardless, because even when things were being run the way that they were being run, all of these years, fans were still optimistic. Fans still showed up and ate chili at training camp. Fans still showed up, dressed out in all their gear and played hooky and took the day off. That might be the least productive day I have ever seen in this city is when, well, Duval Day, but Duval Day is on the weekend. Shout out to little Duval and Henry Mans Jr. for putting on a good day for everybody. But I will tell you this, the first day of training camp that fans are allowed in, those first couple of days, I'm looking up in the stands. I'm like, okay, I'm not going to stop anywhere because nobody's at work. They're all here. They are all here. That optimism is real, and it should be. But what do you have to be optimistic about this year? You didn't need a reason to be optimistic before, but I'm going to tell you right now, you have a big reason to be optimistic now. It's not a player. It's not a coach. It's not the fact that everybody's healthy. Remember the whole offensive line. Well, when we get them all healthy, you see how good they are. They all got healthy and they were terrible, right? So we're not going to bring you down that road. The thing that you have to be optimistic about, even though you don't need me to tell you because you already are going to be optimistic anyway because you're so hopeful, is this. It's real and tangible because it's all new. There it is. It's all new. It's completely different. And none of us know where it's going. None of you know what it's going to look like. None of you have any idea of any of that stuff. Whereas before, you were often optimistic, knowing exactly what it was going to look like, knowing exactly how those guys coached, knowing exactly what the expectations were, knowing exactly what it's going to look like when it starts going bad, because it was the same people doing the same thing, expecting a different result in the past. And that by itself is the definition of insanity. Am I calling y'all crazy for being optimistic about things from years past? No, because the Jaguars were wildly and madly inconsistent. The Jaguars won 9 games. They were 9-8 one year and everybody was happy. They were 9-8 another year. Everybody was sad. And those two teams looked absolutely nothing alike. The optimism here is optimism that is placed in the right spot. It ain't emotional. It is absolutely tangible, and it is real because it happened. They moved around some pieces. They changed their attitude. They didn't go get a BBL. They went to the gym and worked that fat off. You hear me? They didn't cover that bad paint job and rust up with paint and a shiny can of clear coat. They sanded that baby down to the studs and redid it. So at least now you know your optimism for this year. And it's the one thing that you always had, even when they didn't change a whole bunch of stuff. You were just hoping, man. You were just hoping. Well, maybe this little piece and maybe that little piece. I remember they got rid of Mike Caldwell as the defensive coordinator, and people actually thought that was going to fix it. I remember somebody I respect too. I was in the press box. Somebody said something about Mike Caldwell. I kind of said, yeah, like that's the big problem. And then they came back and was like, oh, like, yeah, well, it is a major problem. Okay. And Mike Caldwell went away and the team got worse. That's the point that I was trying to make. I'm not saying that Mike Caldwell was some perfect defensive coordinator. Not saying that he wasn't complicit in this team being bad. But the singularly minded focus of focusing on him, when I know for a fact that a whole bunch of stuff around here, there's screws loose and sprockets loose and gaskets bursting all over this place, and you just complain about that one guy because he was visibly the guy that, and I'm not talking about him personally, but I mean, he was somebody you could pinpoint to as the problem. You didn't want it to be Doug Peterson because Doug Peterson had just saved you from Urban Meyer, and Doug Peterson was the dude that was sitting there talking to Trevor Lawrence every single play. So who do you blame? You blame a low fruit, easy target that was probably complicit in all of it too, because he just got fired again in Las Vegas. But the point is having single-minded blame when it was a whole bunch of things to be blaming was always weird to me. Being optimistic about something that has never given you a reason to be optimistic and it never changed was weird to me. Now, I'm telling you, your optimism is in the right place. When you ask me what it is, I'll say it's the same as it's always been, except you got a reason to feel that way right now. I will warn you, though, that Rome wasn't built in a day. I'm not telling you the Jaguars ain't going to be in Santa Clara in the Super Bowl with confetti falling on them. I'm not telling you that either, because I'm not the one that's going to, I'm not omniscient, man. I'm not going to make sure you guys end up, thinking that it's Super Bowl or bust. And I'm not going to tell you that they won't make the Super Bowl, but I will break down some things for you that you have to be careful about in your enthusiasm. And I'll do that in just a second here on Locked On Jaguars. All right, today's show is sponsored and brought to you by FanDuel. Summer sports are in full swing. I was watching tennis, WNBA, and all that stuff, man. And whether you're all about baseball under the lights, golf on the greens, or high stakes soccer action, FanDuel is the best way to make every game even more exciting. You're already following the action. Why not make it a little more thrilling with FanDuel? You can get in on the action while your friends are getting sunburned at the beach. And then you can go out there and join them with a pocket full of money. I've been using FanDuel to track my favorite matchups, and the app keeps it fresh with new daily promotions and fun ways to bet. New to FanDuel, new customers can bet just $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if your first team wins. Open the FanDuel app today or visit FanDuel.com to get yourself started. Moving and grooving and moving forward here on Locked On Jaguars, where it is your team every day. We thank you for making us your first listen. Talking about optimism, the reasons why we have to be optimistic. You don't really have to have a reason to do it, but it's got to make sense if somebody asked you about it and explained it to you. In the past, I've always talked about when I do radio shows, usually I'm not very negative in the preseason. And it's not because I'm afraid of what somebody's going to say. It's not because I pride myself on not being a jukebox and telling people what they want to hear or doing things that people don't want to do. Locked On pays me to do content. I'll do mailbag every now and then, but they pay me for my opinion and the pulse that I have on the football team. So therefore, I'm more inclined to come out and tell you what I think. You notice I'll have some guests every now and then, but they paying those people, they paying me to give you my opinion, right? So this is always going to be my opinion, and I'm always going to understand who I'm talking to. What would it mean for me to come here every single year and tell you that they're going to be terrible? Even when I had the feeling that they were under those old coaches and the front office, it wasn't in my best interest to come out here and just say, y'all going to suck. We're going to suck. You wasting your buy tickets. I know there's a lot of fans that always wanted me to do that, but I've never done it. I've never done it. When they do something good, I give them credit. Every time they re-sign a player that Trent Baalke drafted, you notice if you watch this podcast or listen to it every day, I say, hey, I got to give Trent, there you go. I salute you. You were right about him. My favorite player on the team, of course, is Trayvon Walker, because I believed in him, and I loved it when they picked him. Just because the rest of the league doesn't seem to want to subscribe to that, that's fine. Every time I talk about Trayvon, I say Trent picked him. Every single time. He picked Brian Thomas Jr. too. Every single time. My issues were always with the overall building of a team. This isn't the NBA where you can get one or two guys right and it changes all of your fortunes. In the NFL, you need to do it consistently every day. I was talking to a friend of mine. He was talking about quarterbacks, talking about Trevor, talking about guys like Jameis Winston. Said on their best day, when it comes to throwing and making hard throws, they're about as good as anybody. But see, there's a variance. It's not about how good you can be on your best day. It's about how consistently good you are and how close you are to that every day. And your bad can't be terrible. In both these cases, their bad has been terrible. So that's why people think about them a certain way. The team is the same way. Doesn't mean you don't do things good sometimes, but sometimes ain't good enough when you're trying to consistently win. Most of the teams that we talk about that win all the time, they have a bad day every now and then. Bad teams, they have a good day every now and then. And it fools you because you think it's fool's gold. But consistently when the year begins, I sit and I watch. Normally, all of these teams have something that they're trying to do. They're trying to get it, and Rome can't be built in a day. They're not going to change their roster. This ain't college where you can run everybody off, sign 28 kids in high school and then another 40 kids in the portal and go out there and be different. It does not work like that in the National Football League. So sometimes they're trying to change it and get it right with parts that they have to keep, with things that they have in development, with other pieces that want to leave that they're trying to retain. And it's a very, very difficult thing to do when you're trying to turn that thing that way. That's why whenever you know it's bad and you have an opportunity to just get away from it, get out of it, reboot it all, that's why you do it. That's why I got mad at Shah Khan when he never seemed to reboot it all. When he always seem to keep remnants and little pieces from the past. So that's where my ire was. But it would always be after the fact. It's like I told you. That's why I do that. But early in the season, oh no, I'm all with y'all, man. I'm optimistic because teams actually get better. People change, people grow. 1 or 2 additions can make a difference and have an impact on people. You saw it in 2017. It started in 16, but it manifested itself in 2017. You learn from it. And you notice that if it isn't done correctly, you get 2018 and 2019 right behind it, right? So the goal is to be consistently and to put yourself in a certain situation. During the season, whatever they got going on that works and doesn't work, we've had grief counseling for years on whatever platform I was on, whether it was on terrestrial radio, TV, over at WTLV or WJSX with my man Chris Porter, and here on this podcast. But you got to know where your feet are. I am not going to sit here and be Debbie Downer about a season where everybody's optimistic, and that's almost like they call it in the hood, they call it, and in the country they say you put roots on people. That means you're speaking things into existence instead of letting it play out and then being honest about what you see. So that's like the why that we do this and the reason that we do this way. And that's why I say the only reason you need to be optimistic, other than feeling optimistic, which is something that all fans do no matter how bad the team is this time it is tangibly rooted in real change and a real opportunity for this team to improve and get better. So I'm going to arm you with some things to watch out for as you get ready for the season and you head into training camp. Some good things, some not so good things, but they could be good. And I could just explain it to you in segment 3 like I'm going to here on Locked On Jaguars. All right, little training camp pep rally is what I like to say today. This is what this is. Because come tomorrow, I'm probably going to end up talking about our Locked On NFL Top 100. And y'all going to think I'm ready to fight some of my colleagues, but I'm not, because I played a part in it. I had a part in it too. So I'm just telling you, you go pay attention to the list. Please keep up with it all day. I would love your impact because we'll have a big show about it tomorrow. And I might do 2 shows. Hell, I might do an emergency show about it. And I might get some of those jokers on here that I know that didn't put my people where I want them to do. And I might tell them about themselves. They're my friends. That's my family. But come on, man, y'all got this wrong. Some people, we had a family reunion when we did this. There were some people that put some raisins in the potato salad, and we got to point them out. We got to let them know we won't play them games down here in Duval like that. Yeah, so look forward to that the rest of the week. Trust me. But getting to it, I'm going to tell you, looking ahead, what we should do. You can now officially let go of the past. All the heartache, all the heartbreak, there ain't nobody in this building that's connected to anything. And I ain't talking about the owner, of course, but I ain't talking about anybody in football operations or in the scouting department or in coaching that has anything to do with any of that mess. Players are happy. Players are watching tape. Players are bragging and making videos about how they watch tape, and that's how they're going to get the answers to the questions. It's all different. People's bodies look different. Everything looks different. Do I know it's going to work? No, I don't know anything. If I did, I'd be on FanDuel right now, making sure that if I knew it was going to work, guess what I do? I go on FanDuel, and y'all might not see me here next year because I'll be on an island somewhere with all my money. That's not the way this works either. I can tell you got a good reason to be optimistic. That's because nothing's going to stay the same. And all you've had over the last decade or more is a bunch of misery, sprinkled in with a little bit of winning every now and then and a few cute nicknames and showing people that if you run up in the stands, you'll get knocked out. Yeah, but that doesn't put any wins, losses, or ties where they need to go to get the Jaguars to the playoffs. Shad Khan has seen the vision. He didn't at first, but going through this hiring process, getting guys that come from places that structurally understand how it's supposed to go. And you might not draw a parallel to Minnesota because they did get some coaches from there. Everybody talks about LA, just like you can't necessarily compare LA and Jacksonville except the weather and the beaches. There is a little bit of part of Minnesota in terms of a small market, right? In terms of the folks kind of forgetting about you a little bit, thinking you're an afterthought because, oh, that's just Minnesota. They actually have a well-run organization. So how do you run a well-conditioned organization with a bunch of young millionaires and make them really buy into the community, buy into what you're doing, and to not be worried about the glitz and the glam of going to LA or New York, which I'm telling you, it's overrated. By the time guys get 28, 29 years old, man, and 30, and they get to that point and they start thinking about a family, the last place they want to be is one of them big old cities that y'all think they want to live in. But the thing is I think this has been an eye-opening experience from a lot of different ways. I think he was affected by the old guard where you had to have the authority, Tom Coughlin, operations, whoever was running operations, football operations, Tom Coughlin, Trent Baalke, that you had to have that dude. The days of needing Joe Clark are over. You don't need that anymore. You have to be a team that is coach-centric, and the coach will work with the GM because any coach worth his mettle knows you ain't doing both these days. You got too much stuff to be worried about than to be worried about player personnel, who you're getting from other teams, all of that control that a lot of those old school guys used to want. You realize you can't do it. So you need somebody you trust. And Liam Cohen definitely trusts James Gladstone. There are a lot of teams around the league doing the alignment deal right now, where they're finding the person that they want to be the driver or the captain that is running this ship, that is setting the course, that's navigating everything, and then having him get and align with someone that understands his vision so that he can go get exactly what he wants. I'll give you an example. I do a lot of cooking. I probably cook more than my wife. My wife shops at the grocery store more than me. And she knows exactly the things I need. I'm talking about scallions, certain seasoning, garlic. She knows all of that stuff, and it's always there. So you see how this works? The cooking is going to be done by Liam Cohen. But while he's teaching the sous chef and the line chef and the players and keeping them together, he never has to worry about the ingredients because somebody he trusts, and I ain't saying James Gladstone is that man's wife. Y'all don't start that foolishness because this is the barbershop and I know how y'all think. Cut it out. But he has a buddy that knows everything that he needs. I call my son right now and say, we're cooking Jamaican food. He'll say, I'll bring everything. And when he comes in the door, he says, all right, Pops, you're going to cook. I bet you there ain't going to be nothing missing. And that's the type of alignment they have right now. EVP Tony Baselli, a winner at everything in life. Guy was a 2-star recruit, turned out to be a Hall of Famer. Mount Rushmore Jaguar. He's now running it. And guess what? He knows what it looks like. He's been around it. He's seen it. He knows, and don't make this like Tony knows his place. No, Tony knows his position. He is sure about what he's supposed to be doing. He is in constant communication with those coaches. They are all in alignment. Folks, I'm telling you, this is something that we have not seen since the early 2000s. I would argue that there has not been this much alignment and this much, I call it staff integrity, with all of the different people who understand the checks and balances of knowing what they need to be doing to make this team better. I have not seen this since the early days of Tom Coughlin and when they had, even before Chris Palmer, when Kevin Gilliard, Dick Geron, Rick Reepish, back in the day when they first started this thing, there was all alignment. Now, it was alignment because everybody knew with Tom Coughlin, he was running things, but things have changed since then. And now the Jaguars have finally changed with it. So the one thing to be optimistic about, even though you were always optimistic when you probably shouldn't have been, is the fact that you really absolutely have a shot to get it right. You weren't going to ever get better holding on to some of those parts that you had. You weren't going to ever get better trying to prove that all we need is one more, just one more. You ever gambled with somebody somewhere and they keep crapping out and they just say, I'm going to hit a point one day. And you keep feeding them money and they crap out 10 times in a row? Sometimes you just got to stop, man, and go somewhere else and leave and start over. The Jaguars have done it. It is not as much of a gamble. Your optimism now, in my opinion, this year is warranted. Outside of the fact that you've just been great fans this whole time. Y'all know how much I appreciate y'all not just listening to this podcast. I appreciate you because I know most people that I talk to have been 1,000% more loyal to those Jaguars than the Jaguars have earned, but yet and still, you're still there. And it ain't just because it's geographical. It's because you love teal and you love black and you love the city and you love that and you want them to do well. We're rooting for them to do well. And now I'm telling you, you actually have something tangible that you need to be rooting for. You got a good chance of it paying off, a better chance of it paying off than you ever did before. Now, I mentioned that this top 100 list, our Locked On NFL top 100 list, is released. As of right now, while I'm doing this show, they've been letting it out. All of us voted, all of the hosts, we voted on the Locked On Podcast Network. Our top 100 was formed by experts that cover these teams and players every day. Find the full list on Locked On Sports today on YouTube or wherever you get your podcast. Don't miss our reaction to where the Jaguars, my reaction is going to be, I'm going to tell you right now, I know where they're at. I'm going to save it for tomorrow because they've gone from 1 to 10 and we've gone from 11 to 20 and now 21 to 30. We still haven't seen a Jaguar. I didn't anticipate we would. So I'm not going to get ahead of where they're releasing this, but I'm telling you right now, you will see the Jaguar. It ain't who you think. So I'm happy about that. But I'm also mad because there's about 2 dudes on there that should have been there that's not there. One in particular. Make sure you check that out. We'll be releasing that all day, and I'll be giving you reaction to it, maybe even a special podcast or 2. You might see me slapbox one of these hosts or these guys from this other team. I might just have them pop on and say, what were y'all thinking? We'll do that as we move forward. Make sure you check that out wherever you get your podcast. Subscribe to Locked On Sports today. Tony Wiggins with Locked On Jaguars. We're getting closer. Around this time next week, man, I'm going to be putting sunscreen on. Yeah, sunscreen, me. Going out there to practice. It's close, y'all. We'll see you here on Locked On Jaguars.